So here we are at the hot pepper bed of the Green Plate Special Garden, and we are going to be harvesting some hot peppers that Maya is going to make into a hot pepper jam. So I'm just going to show you a few of my favorite peppers that we're going to be using and talk a little bit about capsaicin and just the fun world of peppers. So if we look at this one, this is the Hong Gochu pepper. It's a Korean variety, and this pepper starts out green, as you can see here, and then as it matures, it develops more and more of a red color. And this is true for a lot of peppers. They'll start out green, and then they gain their other colors as they mature. So for example, like green bell peppers are actually just immature yellow and red bell peppers. Another thing that's true about hot peppers is that as they get deeper and deeper in their ultimate color, the heat gets greater and greater. So it's developing more and more of that capsaicin, that chemical that is responsible for that burning sensation that we feel when we eat hot peppers. That is getting stronger and stronger as the peppers ripen. The Hong Gochu pepper is a fun one because you can use it for all kinds of things, including gochugaru, which is one of the main ingredients in kimchi. So that's one that we'll use. I'll just go ahead and put it in the basket. And let's move on. This is another one that's super fun. This is the Yatsu Fusa pepper. And it also is ready to harvest once the fruit turns this nice red color. This one's really hot. Let's see, I can't remember. Yeah, this one is like a little bit hotter than a cayenne, and it's a Japanese heirloom variety. I guess it's not crazy hot, but it's in your nice sort of like medium hot range. Moving on, let's see, this is a Serrano pepper, and these can be harvested when they're green or when they're red, and I'm going to go ahead and harvest the red ones. Some people use clippers when they're harvesting peppers, but I just like to sort of grab the pepper and just kind of gently break it off where the stem meets the wider stem of the plant, because it's pretty easy to do so, and that's when it comes off easily, that's part of how you know that it's ready to harvest. This is one of the absolute cutest peppers out there. This is the Bikino pepper, and if you get close you can see that it has just the cutest little sort of Christmas light shape. When I look at it, I think it looks like a little tree decorated with little orange and red light bulbs. Alright, and then this is a Korean variety that I've heard of as Lady Choi, although I'm sure it has a different name in Korean. But this is another one that's great for making kimchi. And it starts out with these beautiful yellow, greenish yellow fruits, but then as it matures, I don't know if you can see it, so I'll just harvest it. It gets darker and darker, and it even ultimately will turn into this like beautiful purple color. And again, the temperature gets hotter the deeper it ripens. I guess temperature is not the wrong word, but the hotness of the pepper. Alright, and then this is our absolute hottest pepper that we're growing this year, and this is the chocolate habanero pepper. And we were doing taste tests of this a couple weeks ago, and everyone agreed this was the hottest. Actually, the part of the pepper that contains the most capsaicin is sort of the white pithy part, sort of around the seeds. So seeds in peppers actually don't have capsaicin, but the little white part that the seeds grow out of has a ton of it. So a lot of people think the seeds are spicy. And then the inner membranes of the peppers as well have some capsaicin too. So these are our hottest ones, the chocolate habanero. And then, looks like that's pretty good. Oh, this is one more that I really like. This is the Aleppo pepper. And they kind of look like little bell peppers, but don't get them confused for bell peppers. They're pretty hot as well. And we're gonna harvest all the red ones of these for the hot pepper jam. And if you want to make hot pepper jam or something like this from your own garden, it's a good idea to sort of harvest every few days for a couple of weeks to get enough peppers to really make something. So while I've only harvested about this much for today, we have a lot more that we've been saving for the last couple of weeks for this project. And this is our sweet pepper bed, and anytime you're making something like hot sauce or a hot pepper jam, it's actually a good idea to add a mix of hot peppers and sweet peppers. I mean, if you're a really intense person, you could make something with all hot peppers, but I find that just a little bit of hot pepper with a little bit of sweet pepper makes a really nice flavor balance. So our hot pepper jam is going to include both. So something also that I should mention is that a lot of times people, and I even was just kind of doing this, talk about peppers as sort of this binary of hot peppers versus mild or sweet peppers. And actually it's more of a spectrum, like many things in life. And so peppers that we think of as on the sweeter end of the spectrum we call sweet peppers. And then anything that starts to have a little bit of that heat we call medium and hot peppers. So these are our sweeter peppers. And this one right here is one of my absolute favorites. This is the Brazilian starfish pepper, and I think you can guess why it's called that based on that shape. I just love these. I think they're so sort of ornamental and decorative looking. And then we also down here have a pepper that you zoom in and you can see this sort of orange pepper here. This is a fun one. This is a habanada. It's a habanero pepper that was bred to not have any of the heat of a habanero. So it's the habanada. It has all the flavors of a habanero, but without the heat. It's really fun to make jellies and jams with this as well. And I think that's about it as far as what is right here. Fortunately, we harvested some more sweet peppers earlier in the week that we'll be able to use for the jam. So that's it for the garden portion of this recipe.
Hi everyone, I'm Maya and I'm coming to you from the Green Plate Special Kitchen. Today we are going to be making hot pepper jam. It's really exciting. We're going to get to use all of these beautiful peppers from the garden. And one of the reasons that we're making jam today is because we have so many peppers that we're harvesting, and we want to make sure that we can enjoy these peppers not just now in the fall time, but throughout the whole year long. So we're going to be canning these peppers in a hot water bath in jars that are going to be shelf stable. And you could also, if you don't want to go through the canning process, this hot pepper jam will last in the fridge for up to probably a couple weeks, and you could also freeze it for up to a year. We've got our sweet peppers on this tray, and we have hot peppers on this tray of varying amounts of heat. And unless you really like your hot pepper jam super spicy, we're gonna do mostly sweet peppers and some hot peppers, so it's like a sweet hot pepper jam. And I'm going to be chopping our peppers by hand today. If you have a food processor, feel free to use a food processor, but just make sure to pulse it so that your peppers don't turn into a mush. And if you are going to be chopping the peppers like I am, make sure to wear gloves. Otherwise your hands are gonna be stinging and it's not gonna be fun. Other ingredients that are going to be going into our pepper jam today is we've got some sugar. Sugar is an important part of the canning process because it helps to thicken the jam and it also helps to make it shelf stable. And then also lemon juice. We're not going to be using pectin today. Pectin is a natural part of fruit that helps to thicken jam as you're cooking it down. And if you want to create more of a jelly-like consistency, I would recommend using pectin. If you're okay with sort of a looser pepper jam, then you can leave it out. It's time to chop our peppers. So, as you all know, peppers are a fruit. They've got their seeds on the inside. It's actually this white part at the top that is the super spicy part. And then, the seeds kind of pick up on that heat as well. But we want to take out most of the seeds, so we're going to cut it in half like this and pull out the seeds. Seeds, we want it to be kind of a smooth texture without these seeds getting in the way of that. And then I'm gonna chop my peppers pretty small. So I'll cut them into strips first, turn them around, and then mince like this. It's a little bit tricky chopping with these gloves on, but you'll get used to it. So again, I'm gonna cut it into strips. And then I'm gonna mince. Once you get it like this, you can go for even a smaller mince. This big chunk. Peppers originate in Bolivia. They spread through Latin America and now all over the world. So the peppers that we have growing in our garden come from Asia and Africa, and South America, Central America. All right, that's an okay size. So I'm gonna put it into my bowl here. I'm gonna keep my sweet peppers and my hot peppers separate into two different bowls so that I can get my ratio of sweet to hot what I want it to be when I start cooking it down. So to cut a pepper like this, I'm gonna hold it on its side and I'm gonna cut it lengthwise first. Got my spider fingers here inside my glove. Then I'm just gonna use my hand to pull out all the seeds instead of my knife. It's a safe way to get them all out of there. And they'll all come out with the stem too, so I'm just gonna pull this whole piece out together, give it a little shake to get all the rest of the seeds out. And then for a pepper, because the outer skin is a little bit tough, I'm actually gonna hold it with its skin side down on the cutting board. And then I'm gonna cut it, and I'm gonna start small with my strips that I'm cutting because I wanna end up small. So if I start small, it'll be faster to get small at the end. And I'm gonna flip those strips around, and I'm still gonna use my left hand, make sure to tuck in my fingertips here. And I'm gonna hold all my fingers around the handle of my chef's knife here, and I'm just gonna keep the tip of my knife down and then up, down, and through with this rocking motion to get this mince. When you get to the end here, feel free to take away your other hand and you can kind of just do a rough chop. You can put your hand on top of your knife while you continue to mince, or it doesn't even have to be in the picture at all. And then you can use the back of your knife to bring it all together again, and then keep going. And I'm gonna, again, use the back of my knife so I don't dull the blade, scrape it into the bowl. Just really beautiful at the end. If you're making this with sweet bell peppers, I would maybe chop up about 5 of those and then 2 or 3 small hot peppers. Also depending on how spicy you want your pepper jam to come out at the end. So peppers are really high in vitamin C and vitamin A and vitamin E, and red peppers are actually the most nutritious. They have a super high content of vitamin C, especially if you eat them raw. They're gonna lose a little bit of their vitamin content once you cook them, but for red peppers, some of that vitamin C is still gonna stick around even after you've cooked them. All right, we are ready to start making our jam. So I've got our hot peppers chopped up here and our sweet peppers chopped up in this bowl. And I'm just gonna add it all to this pot here. I'm gonna simmer my peppers on medium-low, bring it up to a boil, and then maybe turn it down a little bit. Simmer it for, we probably wanna simmer it for about 20 minutes. We want all of the liquid content to evaporate and for it to thicken. While that's starting to heat up, I'm gonna juice my lemons. You can also use apple cider vinegar if you would like for this hot pepper jam recipe. And I'm gonna use the juice of 2 lemons, so about half a cup of lemon juice. And once my jam starts to heat up a little bit, I'm gonna add the sugar too. And I'm gonna start with half a cup, and I'll probably add about a cup of sugar for this recipe. Jam is really fun to make because you can kind of make it as sweet or spicy as you would like, especially if you're not using pectin. If you are using store-bought processed pectin, then it's going to tell you how much sugar you need in order for the pectin to gel and to set. As I'm waiting for my peppers to heat up, I'm going to start to sterilize all of the equipment that I'm going to be using for canning. So over here, I've got my jars, my lids, and my rims. And you want to make sure that you wash those really well in hot soapy water. That's your first step. And then a lot of folks feel kind of intimidated by canning because there are lots of sort of specialized tools that folks think that you need in order to can. And I'm going to show you today some substitutes of tools for canning so that you can feel comfortable doing it in your home kitchen without going out and buying all of these new tools. So in order to sterilize my lids and my rims, and you want to make sure that your lids are new lids, never before used. In terms of your jars and your rims, you can reuse those over and over again. Just make sure you wash them. So for my lids and my rims, I'm going to boil them in hot water, boiling water for 5 minutes, and then take them out. And for my jars, I'm going to boil them in hot boiling water for 10 minutes. And that's just to sterilize everything before you fill them with the jam. So this is what a canning pot looks like. It's super big, so you can can lots of jars at one time. It comes with this rack, which makes it really easy to lift all of your jars out at one time. And it also helps to prevent your jars from cracking or breaking because they're sitting in this rack here that goes into your canning pot. If you don't have one of these canning pots, that's totally okay. Instead, you can just use a big soup pot like this one, and you can boil your jars in a big pot like this. And this is what I've typically used when I've made jam, and my jars come out great. These are really useful in order to take your jars out of the hot water bath. If you don't have these, you can just use tongs that you have lying around. This funnel is really useful. We're going to use it to put the jam into the jars. So out of anything, I would recommend acquiring one of these funnels. And then this tool here is a magnet in order to get your lids out of the hot boiling water. It makes it really easy. If you don't have one, you can just kind of use a fork or a utensil to lift them out of the water. Okay, let's check and see how our jam is doing. It's starting to boil a little bit. and where you want to evaporate all the liquid out of the peppers so that it thickens. So one of the ways that I can help expedite that process is just by continuing to stir. Okay, now that I've got my jam going, I've got my hot water going where I'm going to boil my lids and my rims. I'm going to put a plate into the freezer. Sounds kind of strange, but I call this the plate test, and we're going to be using it later on to make sure that our jam has thickened well enough. Okay. Okay, we're gonna add our sugar. I'm gonna start with just half a cup of sugar here. You can also use honey as a sweetener in jam if you want to use a sugar substitute. I love eating hot pepper jam with cheese on crackers. It's really yummy. I'm going to turn up the heat on this a little bit because I want it to be boiling so that we can evaporate that water quickly. So my water in this saucepan is boiling. I'm going to add the rims first. And then the lids as well. You just want to make sure that everything that you're using is sterilized. So I'm gonna, now that they're in here, I'm gonna turn this off and set my timer for 5 minutes. Right? My pepper jam is coming along here. We've brought it up to a boil, so I'm just gonna make sure to keep stirring it so that it doesn't stick on the bottom and we can thicken it quickly. I'm gonna go ahead and take my lids and my rims out of the hot water. I'm gonna use this fork because it's really easy if you have a fork around. If you have this magic magnetic wand, that's also an easy way to take out your lids and your rims. Next up, we are going to boil this big pot of water, and we're gonna boil our jars for 10 minutes in there in order to sterilize our jars. So we've got a pretty chunky hot pepper jam going on here. If you want it a bit finer, again, you can always mince it smaller or use a food processor. This is almost there. You can kind of see when I'm stirring it, it's sort of gelling together, and there's not as much liquid going on anymore. So that's a good indication that it's almost there. We are ready for our plate test. I've got my very cold plate that was in the freezer for about 15 minutes, and I'm gonna take just a small spoonful of my jam here, put it on the plate, and what I'm looking for is this jelly consistency here, not moving too fast down my plate. These big chunks moved kind of fast, but that's because they're kind of big. So the fact that this part is moving pretty slowly means that my jam is pretty set. If it was runnier, it would move faster, and that would mean that I would just want to boil it for longer. Hi everybody, it is the next day and we are out here in the garden. It's a beautiful October day. I'd recommend enjoying this hot pepper jam outdoors. So we've got 3 beautiful jars here. We've got some cheese and crackers to enjoy it with. And after we took each jar carefully out of the hot water bath, they were each in there for 10 minutes. We took them out and we just set them on a clean dish towel in a dark place overnight. And we didn't touch the lids or anything. And then today, the next day, I came back and I just pressed down in the middle of the lid. And if it doesn't spring back, if there's not like an air pocket that you feel making a pop sound, then you know that it's sealed correctly and it's shelf stable. So all 3 of these are nicely sealed. And just a note about the hot water bath, the 10 minutes for jam is for where we are here in Seattle at sea level. So it's usually, I think, 1,000-foot altitude or lower for 10 minutes for this jam. If you're at a higher altitude place, make sure to look it up online. You can find that information really easily on the internet. And for canning other things like tomato sauce or applesauce, those things are going to require a different amount of time for your hot water bath for preserving. So just make sure to double check it, but know that for this hot pepper jam, or if you're jamming other types of fruits like a berry jam, it's going to be 10 minutes. So I really hope that you all are excited to do some canning at home and that you feel confident in the tools that you have that you can use to substitute for traditional canning tools, and that you're excited to get going with preserving some of the delicious fruits and vegetables that we have growing here in Seattle and wherever you live. Other ways to preserve peppers, we love dehydrating peppers and then grinding them up to use as spices throughout the year. You can also pickle whole peppers, or you can slice them up and pickle them that way too. We love making hot sauce here with our hot peppers or relishes, so there's lots that you can do with these delicious peppers. All right, what do you think? Should we try it? I mean, it's preserved for the year. They're really great to give away as gifts, but I kind of want to see what it tastes like right now. I'm just too curious and excited about it. So we're gonna open one. Okay, so for the lid, when it's sealed, it can be sometimes hard to pop off, but let's see. Came off okay. That's what it looks like on the inside. And this would be really delicious on a sandwich. We're gonna try it today with some cheese and crackers. Let's see how spicy it is. All right. Yum. You know, I think it's just the right amount of spice, just the right amount of sweetness. It's colorful, it's festive. I hope that you enjoy the one that you make.